People love to blame Kathleen Kennedy for absolutely everything wrong with Star Wars. But if she's Darth Vader, then Bob Iger is Palpatine, the puppet master controlling everything from the beginning, responsible for all the bad decision making. And now he's gone. We're going to break it down. Good evening, YouTube. D from here. Welcome to the Chill Zone. Thank you for joining me. And yes, more big shakeups with Disney and Lucasfilm. Prior to this, we had Kathleen Kennedy stepping down as head of Lucasfilm. Now, just a few weeks later, Bob Iger stepping down as CEO of Disney. Here we see Business Insider stepping down 9 months early. Yes, his contract was supposed to go till the end of 2026. I thought I was going to be here at the end of the year talking about this, but no, here we are stepping down with Josh DeMario. I keep saying DeMario. Josh DeMario is responsible for parks at Disney Parks, Disneyland. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about Bob Iger, who became CEO of Disney way back in 2005. Then he stepped down in 2020. Bob Chapek took his place, and then he came back in 2022 because it was not going well. And he had a good run, man. This guy made a whole lot of money from a business perspective. This guy was absolutely killing it. But when it comes to Star Wars, this man presided over the Dark Ages. And in a lot of ways, Kathleen Kennedy took the blame for these past few years since they bought it from George Lucas. He has actually been the one responsible for a lot of the decision-making and failures of Star Wars. But our story does not begin in 2005 with Iger. It begins in 2012 when Star Wars was purchased by Disney. And here we see Bob Iger was a huge part of that. He greenlit George Lucas's Young Indiana Jones TV series to a second season way back in the day and gained George Lucas's favor. They were friends, but as we learn, he betrayed George Lucas in a major way. When they bought Star Wars, they decided they're going to buy the scripts for the George Lucas sequel trilogy. And then he notes, we made it clear in the purchase agreement we would not be contractually obligated to adhere to the plot lines. And I'm sure George Lucas, when they signed that, he was like, yeah, they're not going to beat for beat copy my storyline. They can change a few things, they own it, but I'm sure he didn't expect them to completely go off the rails, make their own trilogy altogether, abandon his scripts, which would have been far, far better than the sequel trilogy we got. It would have centered around Luke, his new Jedi Order, going up against Darth Talon and Darth Maul. It was going to be sweet, but we never got to see that because they didn't take the goal that was before them. You buy this property from the man, but you disrespect him not using his scripts. Unbelievable. Then, after they bought Star Wars, Iger got off to the races. He promised the new trilogy and other movies that we saw in Rogue One and Solo. He promised a Star Wars movie every year from 2015 to 2019. Prior, the Star Wars prequel trilogy and original trilogy, we had one movie every 3 years, plenty of time to create the movies. But no, he said, we're having this movie. The first one's coming out in 2015, and then we're going to release one every single 2 years. We're going to release the mainline trilogy with the ones in the middle. Not enough time. He put way too much pressure on Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy to get these movies out. And in doing this, he also did not plan it out whatsoever. He went movie by movie and just went willy-nilly. Oh, let's see what each director wants to do. You know it. The sequel trilogy was absolutely all over the place. Then we see after people had Star Wars fatigue and we had the failure of Solo, a Star Wars story, which, what was he doing releasing another Star Wars movie 4-5 months after we had The Last Jedi's failure? He released another movie. That was just a mistake. So after the failure of Solo, Iger says, you can expect some slowdown. So he has a big pulling back on the flow of Star Wars movies. He thought he could make Star Wars Marvel. He's like, oh, the MCU did so good when I was in charge. Let's just do it again. Let's pump out the movies. And they're going to be slop, but we don't care. So, and it didn't stinking work, obviously. Terrible, terrible. He just thought you could put anything with Star Wars and lightsabers on it, and the people are going to watch it. It worked with The Force Awakens, but then people realized these movies stink. We're not watching them anymore. So we're starting to see a pattern. We're starting to see that where Kathleen Kennedy was blamed for the sequel trilogy being terrible and no direction, where was this pressure really coming from? It was coming from up top. She was put in a tough position. You got to release these movies ASAP. No, we don't have time to plan them out. Just do what you can. This is Bob Iger's fault. And Kathleen Kennedy has been blamed for years. And I'm one of those people who, back in the day, I was like, Kathleen Kennedy is the worst. She ruined Star Wars. She's malicious. But no, it really seems like Bob has been behind it all along. Next, we see in the aftermath of that 5 movies in 5 years stretch, Bob decided, we got to really pull back, which that was a good call. At first, you need to pull back. You can't have a Star Wars movie every year. It's not Marvel. And now we even see the Marvel fatigue that they can't even do that anymore either. But he canceled projects, but he canceled the wrong projects. He moved everything to Disney Plus. The Obi-Wan series was originally supposed to be a movie. Here we see initially the idea of a Kenobi-focused story was imagined as a movie, but then Bob Iger specifically said, we're going to shift our priority to making series for Disney Plus. So Bob, in all his genius, said, a spin-off for Han Solo origin story that nobody asked for failed? That must mean that what everyone wants, an Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan story, we should probably put that on Disney Plus, pulled back the budget, and yeah, that's the right decision. So it's not that he shouldn't have pulled back on projects. It's the poor decision making continued. He just put it all on Disney Plus, and it was slop. Again, $90 million to the Obi-Wan show with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, but $300 million to the Acolyte. What is going on up in the executive room? So yeah, Bob really, he's had his hand in the cookie jar for a while, but it wasn't clear. All the blame was put on Kathleen Kennedy, which I'm sure Bob was fine with. She's in charge of Lucasfilm. I don't know what your guys' problem, but it wasn't until recently we learned that he shot down this Adam Driver Ben Solo movie. So Adam Driver takes this idea for this movie to Steven Soderbergh, and they love it. Adam Driver's like, this is the greatest script I've ever seen. It's perfect. So yeah, Kathleen Kennedy, she reads the script. She loves it too. She approves it. They bring it to Bob Iger and Alan Bergman, and they say, no, we don't understand why is Ben Solo alive after the sequels? He died. That doesn't make sense. Well, Disney Star Wars doesn't seem to have a problem with bringing back people who got stabbed. Everyone except for Qui-Gon has basically made a comeback after getting stabbed with a lightsaber. So why not bring back Ben Solo when it would have actually been really cool? A highlight for me and most people from the sequel trilogy was Kylo Ren by Adam Driver, and he was tremendous. If we could have got him back, I think that movie would have done numbers. But no, Bob shuts it down. And after this news came out, people did some digging, and it seems like Bob has kind of had it out for George Lucas, and that affected a lot of his decision making. So this last article pulls back the curtain a little bit, even more into what we were already suspecting. Bob Iger, not Kathleen Kennedy. Insider claims rewrite Star Wars' blame game. So yes, it talks about the Hunt for Ben Solo movie that Kathleen brought before Bob, and he shut it down. But it also talks about past projects, such as the Clone Wars, which, let's not forget, when Disney bought Star Wars, they shut down the Clone Wars and didn't let it come to completion, which was an absolute travesty. And Bob was the one who decided, we're going to make all of the EU not canon, throw it out, and clean slate for Disney Star Wars. This kind of shows where Bob's head has been at this whole time. Bob wanted to sever the chain from George Lucas's projects, and this ties into the biggest Disney Star Wars mistake and tragedy of all, and that was the treatment and disrespect towards Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy, particularly The Last Jedi, and that was Bob, man. We thought it was Kathleen trying to sideline it to make Rey the star, but it sounds like Kathleen wanted Luke and Rey to share a central relationship. He could have trained her kind of like in Empire Strikes Back with Luke and Yoda. That would have been tremendous. But no, it sounds like Bob was the one who said, make Luke a hermit, make him lame. And we want to just disrespect everything that was George Lucas related from the beginning, whether it's, no, we're not using your scripts even though we bought them, to we're going to drag your central character, Luke Skywalker, through the mud. Now we see the truth. Bob Iger was the problem all along, and now that he's gone, I think Star Wars can heal. Hopefully this next CEO Parks guy can stay out and let Dave Filoni cook now that the future is here. And again, I'm sorry, and I think a lot of us on the internet as well put a lot of the blame on Kathleen when she does not deserve it. But overall, guys, what do you think? Do you blame Bob for a lot of the missteps? Or do you still think it was Kathleen or maybe someone else? But thanks for watching. Subscribe. If you're watching this far, you might as well subscribe. Like 98% of the people watching my videos are not subscribed. So why can't we make it 97? Subscribe, like, comment. Thanks. And stay tuned for more along these lines, movie videos, Star Wars, stuff like that. Thank you.